welcome back to Grandmaster's Choice. Today we're going to pick off where we left off last time. We're going to go through some tactics on the League Chess Tactics Trainer, see if we can solve them together. So if you're there in the Twitch chat as well, feel free to chime in, share your thoughts and your moves in the Twitch chat. I'll be monitoring that as well. So we've got the first position up here. It's white to play. So what do we think is going on here? What moves come to mind? Is there something in black's position that we think we can target? So when you're solving tactics, you want to think about forcing move first. Those usually take the form of check, or an exchange, or a capture. So do we have any of those in this position? It doesn't seem like we can exchange anything, right? We have a queen and a bishop, but can't really exchange them with anything. Black's got a queen and a rook, so he has an exchange up. We're down material, which means we have to act quickly, otherwise the extra material is going to make a difference. So what about black's king? Is there any way which we can check black's king?
Bishop check.
Okay, and bishop where?
H6.
Okay, so bishop h6, very good. So not only do we give a check to the king, but we attack the rook as well. So now we have to calculate what happens after black moves his king back. So let's say bishop h6, king g8. What do we do next? Do we grab the rook immediately, or do we have something stronger? What's up, Patrick? Yeah, those are good candidate moves. Well, these tactics aren't supposed to be super difficult. So even if they look easy, don't second guess yourself. So bishop h6 check, king g8. Black has to keep the rook on f8 protected. So it'd be great if we can dislodge the king from protecting the rook. Then we just win the rook for free. So is there any way which we can do that?
Queen e6.
Okay, very good. So queen e6 check. We attack the king. If he moves to the side, then we grab the rook. So now the question remains, after bishop h6, king g8, queen e6 check, what if black blocks with rook f7? So he's holding on for dear life. Got to play one more move there to win that rook cleanly. Patrick, that's a good idea. I don't think it works though. There's a defense for black, and it's a similar defense to one that black has after rook f7. I'll show it afterwards. So rook f7. What are the checks in the position? The bishop on h6, there is potential to create a mating net around black's king. So bishop h6, his king drops back, slide our queen into e6, and he blocks with rook f7. So we're so close to winning that rook, but we got to make one more move. We have two checks which we have to consider in that position. We have queen e8 check, right, hitting the queen from the back rank, and we have queen takes g6 check, winning this pawn and also attacking the king. So the question is, which one should we go for there? Only one of those moves win. The other leads to, I think, a draw. So we got to calculate that out carefully. Yeah, Patrick, that's one of the ideas, queen e8, but does black have a defense there? So after queen e8, we hit the king and we attack the rook. He can't block rook f8 because the bishop on h6 covering that square. So is there a way which he can get out of that? Let me just remove those arrows. So bishop h6, king g8, queen e6, rook f7, queen e8, hitting the king, hitting the rook. He can block, but does black have a defense there? Yeah, very good, Patrick. I think you figured it out. And yeah, that's why queen d7 would not work. Alright, so maybe let's make the first few moves so it's a bit easier to visualize. So bishop h6, king g8. Alright, we got that right. Queen e6 check, rook f7. Perfect. This is where we're at. So again, queen e8, queen takes g6. 2 candidate moves. So it's just move by move calculation here. We've got to anticipate what our opponent will play after either move, and then just compare which one looks better.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone likes queen e8, someone likes queen g6. All right, so queen e8 check. Do you have a response for black there?
Even if they block, bishop has a cover.
Yeah, very good. So rook f8 is not possible. We can just take that because the bishop's covering it. But does he have another move? Think about all his possibilities there. There's only one other move in the position, right? So what's the other legal move there? We'll come back to that. I just want to figure out why queen e8 doesn't work. So queen e8 check. What's the defense for black? Well, if he moves his rook, the f8 square is covered, right? We've got the bishop and the queen. So he can't do that, but he has another move. So queen e8 check. How does black defend there? King h7, yeah, okay, very good. So queen e8, king h7. Seems like that shouldn't work because we can take the rook, but our bishop's also hanging. He takes our bishop back. And all of a sudden we lose our attacking potential there. So try to imagine this position. Queen e8, king h7, queen f7, king h6. We just get into a queen endgame and black's king escapes. So queen e8 is no good. So queen takes g6. What about that? Black blocks, we take the rook. Black moves his king over. Yeah, very good. We take the rook on f7 and we win the rook. And our king is safe on d2, so we don't have to worry about any perpetual check from the queen. All right, so let's do that. Queen g6, king h8, and yep, queen takes f7. So let's go back here. There was a suggestion in the chat. Bishop h6, king g8, queen d7. And again, this looks very strong. We're threatening mate. It seems like black has no defense, but there's this move again. Rook f7 and the same idea as we saw on the other line. Queen e8 check, king h7. And black's king escapes because of the attack on the h6 bishop. So that's why king g8, it's important to go queen e6 check, rook f7, and then not get tempted by this move. Simply slide the queen over here, and black's position falls apart. All right, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so we got a pawn endgame here. Okay, the first move is obvious, so white took our queen, we will take back. All right, so now we got to think here. Not many pieces on the board, so again, move by move calculation. It's clear that our idea should be to promote the pawn. We also have to worry about white's pawn promoting. So in what direction should we start thinking here? Should we just move our king anywhere and start ramming our pawn down the board, or is there a strategic way which we can maneuver our king? Firstly, let's just count. So let's say we move the king somewhere random. Let's just say here for now. White goes g5, we go b3, white goes g6, black goes b2, white goes g7, we promote, and he promotes at the same time. And that's just a draw, right? Queen versus queen. So we know that pushing our pawn down aimlessly is not going to work because white queen's at the same time. That means we've got to use our king. The question is how? What's the role of the king going to be? Again, white's only source of counterplay is the g-pawn. So how can we use our king? What should the king's role be here?
King f4.
King where?
On
It's black's perspective, so this would be c.
c4.
c4, okay, and what's the idea? So let's say I go g5.
On d5.
Yeah, very good. So the king is just going to come back to help protect against this pawn. So let's count. King c4, g5, king d5, g6, king e6, g7, king f7. We catch that pawn. If white can't promote the pawn, it's just game over because his king is too far from our pawn. So once we stop this pawn, then we can continue on with our pawn advance. So king c4, g5, king d5, g6, exactly what we said, and king f7.
Take a.
Yep, and we just take the queen. And white can prevent black from promoting. So it's important here not to just rush into getting into a pawn race here. We got to think about our opponent's counterplay. He wants to promote. He wants the same thing as us. And so we can use our king to stop that. Yeah, it is a bit counterintuitive, Patrick. So it seems like, why are we putting our king on the same diagonal and the same color square as white's promotion square? It could be a check potentially. But again, we got to calculate it move by move, right? Just because something looks wrong doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. So king c4, g5, king d5. The goal is to catch that pawn with our king. And once you realize that we can catch it, then it becomes very clear that this is the correct move, because we get rid of white's only source of counterplay, and then our pawn is free to advance. All right, next one. Back in the middle game here. So what's going on? What sticks out immediately in the position? Let's look at white's pieces, in particular the d file. Does that queen look like it could run into issues on the d file? And if so, why? Look at how our pieces are lined up. Yep, good job, Patrick. So this queen on d5. What do we have on the d file that could potentially create issues for this queen? Yeah, okay, very good. The rook, but bishop's also kind of correct. So we have this rook here on the d file. Could be a potential discovered move with our bishop. So imagine we could move this bishop to a square, which attacks the queen and unleashes this attack, but also attacks something else in white's position, creating a double attack. If we can do that, we'll just win material, because white will have to react to his queen being under attack. After he saves his queen, we can pick up the other piece which we were attacking. So is there a square which we can move our bishop to that accomplishes this?
G4.
Where? G4, yeah. Bishop g4, very good. So we attack the queen and we attack that rook at the back. And I don't think white can defend there, so let's try it. Bishop g4, yep, very good. Goes queen e4, and we grab that rook, and we just win in exchange. All right, that was pretty straightforward. Next one, another pawn endgame. So again, move by move here. Not many pieces on the board, so we need to calculate this out carefully. Theoretically, it should be easier to do that. Oh, there are only, what, 6 pieces on the board. It should be clearer now what our goal should be in this position.
Well, king on f7.
King f7? Okay, think about it first. Don't just rush. So,
Get the king in front of the black pawns, and so I'll probably just go to g8 first with the black king.
okay, very good. So king g8. So we need to understand here that our goal should be to pick up this pawn on h5, and potentially the f5 pawn as well. We need to attack the white pawns, because our king is very passive. If we play a move like king f7, he'll take the opposition, and his king will slowly enter into the position. We'll have to keep giving up ground. We'll probably lose the game there. Move like king g8 though. All of a sudden we're going after these pawns. So let's see. King g8, king e6, king h7, king f7. So white's trying to attack the g7 pawn as well. King h6, king g8. What's happening there? So the point is, if we take on h5, white wants to take on g7. So is that the end of the line, or do we have something at the end? Yep, you should be worried about that, but we still have to calculate that line, right? Because if it works, then we just win the game. We pick up both of white's pawns. So again, king g8, king e6, king h7, king f7, king h6, and white comes down to g8. He's trying to keep contact with his g7 pawn, and his idea is if we take on h5, he takes on g7. So now you have to figure out, is that the end of the variation, or do we have another move at the end there?
Push the pawn.
How do you push the pawn? You mean the g pawn?
The G6.
You mean like here?
Yeah.
But that would just give it the pawn, right? And even if you go g5, white always has en passant. So king g8, king e6, king h7, king f7, king h6, king g8. So we need to figure out, is that winning for black? Or do we have to look for something else? Yep, guys in the chat have got it. Good job. So again, king takes h5 at the end of that line. King takes g7. So our king now is on h5. Try to visualize that. White's king on g7. And the only pawns remaining are f5 and f6. And his king is also now threatening to take on f6 there. So is that it, or do we have something there? Yep, good job, SG.
If we take the pawn on h5, do we have time to protect the pawn on f6 by going to king to g5?
Yep, very good, that's it. So at the end we just have king g5. We defend the f6 pawn and we're attacking the f5 pawn. And white can't stop that. And once we take the f5 pawn, his king is so badly out of position that we'll be able to run our f pawn down the board. So king g8, yep, king e6, king h7. All right, he's trying king d5, doesn't matter. Let's look at the main line here. King f7, king h6. So this is the line which we were trying to work out. King h5, king g7, and we need to see king g5 at the end there. Otherwise we lose, right? Because he takes the f6 pawn. We have this king g5 move, which protects it and attacks f5, and his king is just so bad now. Can't get back in time to stop this pawn. For instance, this king can just keep shouldering the white king, and this f pawn is going to roll down the board. All right. Okay, wow. This looks horrible for black. Our rook is so passive. It's stuck protecting the c pawn from promoting. His king is more active than ours. Our structure is terrible. Everything about this looks like it should be a lost position, but maybe we have some hidden resource here. Could white be overextended somewhere? So it's clear if we move our king, whichever way we go, he's going to go the other way. So king e7, for example, king g6, his king penetrates. King g7, king e6. We don't want to allow his king to get into our position. So we need to leave the king on f7 to keep this king out. It's doing a good job of doing that. Is there somewhere which we can activate this rook with a threat? And again, you have to be very careful where you move this rook, because if you move it to the wrong square, you're just going to allow white to promote for free. So is there somewhere we can move this rook which creates a threat in the position? Look at white's king. It could be potentially trapped. Yep, very good. So rook e8 with the threat of?
Queen on e5.
Yeah, rook e5, exactly. And white can't stop this. It's just made after rook e8. We take away that e4 square, suddenly white's king is trapped, and rook e5 is unstoppable. So rook e8. All right, he tries rook e3. Doesn't matter. We're just going to take that rook. And whenever he promotes, we give mate in the center of the board. Kind of amusing that we're able to checkmate white there despite having such a bad position. Just shows you that there can be hidden moves even in bad positions. Okay, so what was black's last move? Oh, okay, he grabbed our knight there. So he just took our piece. Can't take back because it's pinned. So let's not think about that. But we have some action going on here around black's king on the queen side. Got an open A file. His pawn on B6 is doing stuff. Could potentially take this. So we can generate some threats here. So it seems to me that there are only two moves we need to consider. Taking that pawn on a7 with the pawn or taking with the rook. We need to figure out which one is better. So what do you guys think? What looks more intuitive? Should we take with the pawn? Should we take with the rook?
Rook goes to a7.
Okay, with the idea of... So rook a7, what's the idea? What's your next move if you had one more move?
That's checking.
Like rook a8?
Yeah.
It's not mate though because he can block with knight b8. It's almost mate, but he has this backward knight move which defends everything, knight b8. And I don't see how you would make progress there. It seems like he's covering all the threats.
Well, take them with pawn.
Okay, so taking with the pawn, now that has a direct threat. We're threatening to promote.
So,
I'm not sure what we play after king c7 though. Or maybe, yeah, I think maybe we have some ideas there actually. This is a tricky position. So pawn takes, so we're threatening to promote. Okay, he moves his king up. I think I see an idea for white there. So ba7, king c7. Try to come up with an idea there for white. Again, keep in mind that this queen on f4, the g-pawn is pinned, but if we can deflect that rook somehow, that queen's going to be under attack. So see if we can incorporate that into our move here. King c7 opens up the rooks, right, to protect the a8 square. But maybe that rook on g8 could be potentially overloaded. It's trying to do too many things. Keep this pawn pinned and keep this pawn from promoting. So can we exploit that? Do you mean c5 here or in the next position after king c7? I don't think it works in either position though. Because I would just take on c5. But I see your point. You're trying to open up the queen to attack this rook, but I think we have an even better move. So ba7, king c7. Again, think about moves that seemingly don't work. Black may have covered the a8 square, but maybe we still have some ideas connected with pushing that pawn. No, that's a very legitimate concern, Patrick. That's definitely something which we'll look at. So now try to figure out how we escape with our king. So what are you guys thinking after king c7? Let's hear some candidate moves. Any ideas? We've got a suggestion in the chat from a very terrible chess player. I'll address that later. So he's suggesting after king c7 to promote a8 knights. He's trying to be funny. So b8, king c7. But again, that should give you guys a hint.
A knight.
Well, no, we don't want to promote to a knight. We want to do something a bit more forceful.
Rook. Bishop. Queen.
What's the most powerful piece?
Queen.
Okay, so let's say we promote to a queen. So what's the point there? Black just takes. What do we do now?
Now take the rook.
Okay, we take the rook. What if he takes?
The queen.
Yep, very good. Now the queen is hanging. So all of a sudden, after ba7, king c7, a8, queen, like I said, the rook on g8 is overloaded. So he can take once, but we take back. And since he can't take twice, we just won an exchange. We'll have a rook. We'll have 2 rooks and a queen versus the queen, rook, and knight. So ba7, king c7, seemingly stopping a8, but actually we can still play that move. And we win the exchange. So the only thing there which we would have to calculate is this rook sack on g3, which could result in a perpetual, but I don't think it does. So let's look at that. ba7, king c7, queen, take, take. All right, they stopped the line here, so let's look at what we were discussing. If he takes, all of a sudden the pin is gone. We take the queen. If he does nothing, well, he just lost an exchange, basically, and we're going to have a winning position. So let's say he tries rook takes g3 check. H takes g3, queen takes g3. So his idea is after king h1, he'll play queen h3, and he'll keep checking our king in the hopes of making a draw. Oops, sorry. Queen g3 check. But if we just calculate for a few more moves, we see that our king escapes quite easily if we run this way. King f1. Again, the material deficit is huge. We have 2 rooks and a queen. He's got a queen and a knight. So if he can't find a perpetual check here, the game's just going to be over. White's up so much material. So queen h3, king e1. And our goal is basically to just run that king over to the queen side. Imagine the king getting to b1. That would just be absolutely safe. So king e1, queen g3, king d3. No matter where he checks from, our king will always find a safe haven here. You can try this. Doesn't matter. We go here. And he runs out of checks very easily. So that would just be the final thing which we need to make sure when we make a move like this, that rook takes g3 doesn't work. Let's see, are there any other tricky checks he can try? Queen h4, nope. Our king runs anyways. All right, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so what's going on here? Material imbalance. Black's up in exchange, right? We've got 2 bishops and a knight. He's only got a bishop and knight, but he's got an extra rook. He's got 2 rooks, you got 1 rook. So we're down in exchange. He just took on a2. Could be potentially attacking our king. We've got to watch out for moves like queen a1, hitting the king, and also hitting that bishop. But we do have some strengths in the position. So what looks weak in black's position?
Queen and rook.
Okay, there could be potential along this diagonal. What else? Are there some squares in particular that are weak in black's position? Yeah, very good, the dark square. He's missing the dark squared bishop. This diagonal could create serious issues for black there potentially. Those are 2 motives which we identified. Potential ideas along this diagonal and along this diagonal. So we also have to, like I said, watch out for queen a1, queen f1. So we got to act quickly. So what's a forcing move here that creates some serious threats in black's position?
Bishop.
Bishop where?
C4.
Is that protected? He can just take the bishop, right? So we don't want to rush. So again, look at this diagonal in particular. Focus on that. We've got a killer dark square bishop on d4. He doesn't have a dark square bishop defending his king. So what's the way which we can use that? What piece can we combine with that bishop to create a serious threat? Huh?
Queen on e4.
Queen here where?
Queen on e5.
Here?
Yes.
Yep, very good. So queen e5. So we're threatening a mate on h8. That's a serious threat. He can't run because queen h8 is mate anyways. So after queen e5, he's got to try to block this diagonal. The only way he can do that is rook f6. So now we got to continue our calculation. Where do we go from there? So our thinking should be centered around getting rid of that f6 bishop, f6 rook. So what's protecting that f6 rook? Right, the pawn on e7, protecting the rook. If that pawn falls, his position collapses because the rook can no longer block that diagonal. How do we get to that pawn?
Take it.
Yep, very good. Simply we just take it. Queen takes e7. Now his rook's hanging, and there are just too many threats to deal with. If his rook can't block this diagonal, then our attack is just going to crash through. So I think that's the solution. Let's try it. Queen e5. Okay, rook f6. Yep, very good. We take that pawn. All right, he tries knight c6. So one more move we need to play. When we took on e7, we had a threat. What was it?
Queen E8.
Queen e8 check. That's not mate though, right? He can block. Rook f8. Gotta be careful. It's attacking our queen and our bishop. But when we took on e7, we had a threat. Yep, guys in the chat, good job. Yeah, bishop c4 doesn't work. So what was the threat when we took on e7? We undermined something.
Take the rook.
Yeah, very good. Just simply take the rook. Queen takes f6. Just pick this rook up. And then we're up a piece after all that. So we get that exchange back, but we also win a piece. He's got 1, 2 pieces. We got 1, 2, 3. And he's got these weaknesses around the king. So he has no compensation at all. So we just pick up that rook. And yeah, game's over. Okay, next one. All right, queen f5 is the last move. So immediately we should see that we have ideas on this file, right? Queen takes b2 is a potential idea. If we could play that, it'd be mate, but the rook is defending it. So already we should start to think of ways to get rid of that rook on b1.
Knight on D2. Attack
Okay, knight on d2, that's definitely one idea. I think white has a sneaky move in response, though. I don't think knight d2 quite works. But there's another, it's the right idea, but there's another way of doing it, I think, which stops white's counter move. So again, look at that pressure on that b file.
Knight on C.
Yeah, very good. Knight c3. So knight c3, attacking that rook, he can't take because it's mate. And if he can't do anything about it, we're just going to pick up that rook. So let's try knight c3. I think it's correct. Let's just make sure. I'm worried about some moves like knight h6 here. But, so basically my concern is knight h6. We can't take with the queen because that would break the pin. He can then take the knight. So knight c3, knight h6, g takes h6. Got to make sure he doesn't have some queen check, which also attacks the knight on c3. I don't think he does, though. He could try queen g4, but then we go king h8, and he runs out of checks. So I think this is correct. Let's try it. Okay. Take with that pawn. All right, he goes queen e5. Interesting. So he's not giving a check, but he's attacking our knight. So,
Rook.
yep, very good. We just take that rook. Doesn't do anything to help him. So let's see why knight d2 wasn't working. It also looks good, right? It looks like the same thing. We're attacking that rook. He can't move it because it's mate. So what does white play here? Find white's defense. I'll flip the board even. So look at the positioning of black's king and this knight on d2. Yeah, really good, Patrick. That's why knight c3 is correct, because it takes away that square. So how does white save the game here? So he can't move the rook. We already know that. So we know it's got to be something related to the knight and the queen. So his only hope is to create some sort of counter threat against black's king. So how can he do that?
Queen D5.
Yeah, very good. Queen d5.
The knight
Exactly. So queen d5, attacking the knight on d2 and setting up a discover check with the knight on f7. This knight is ready to move and it's going to do some damage. So that's why knight d2 doesn't work. So another suggestion, knight takes h6 almost works, but the difference here now is that we can actually take with the queen. Compared to the knight on the knight c3 line, we couldn't take with the queen there because he can take. But here the queen protects the knight. And queen d5 wouldn't do anything, the knight is protected. But close, that was the right idea. But instead queen d5, our knight's unprotected. And there's also a threat to a discover check threat to the black king. But yeah, very important to see our opponent's resources as well. It seems like the same move and it doesn't make a difference, but one of them wins, the other one allows probably a draw. So yeah, knight c3 was very precise. All right, good job. Okay, back to another pawn endgame. All right, so we have a decision. He just took our pawn. How do we recapture? Without even calculating, instinctively, what recapture makes more sense? What's the difference between if I take with this pawn, the e pawn, and if I take with the g pawn? Exactly. If we take with the g pawn, we create that pass pawn for white. That's always going to be counterplay. That means we can never run our king down to attack this f3 pawn because this h pawn is always going to be a problem. So let's look at e takes f4. What's our plan in this position? We're trying to get our king into the enemy territory so we can pick up this pawn on f3. So ef4, he's going to try to stop that. Let's say he goes king e2. So he's ready to shoulder our king. He's trying to block it out. Is he going to succeed or can we outmaneuver his king? Well, Patrick, why is e takes f4 necessarily a draw? We have a more active king, right? And we prevent white from getting a passed pawn on the h file. So you make sure white doesn't have any counterplay, and we can potentially have a way to use our king to infiltrate the position. White's king is very passive, but he has one hope here. If we go to the wrong score, he's going to make a draw. So we need to be careful. E takes f4, king e2. How do we get into white's position? So when you calculate, think, wherever you move your king, how is white going to react? Where is he going to position his king in relation to your king?
f4, king goes to e2, then king goes to e5.
King e5.
So after you take,
Okay, so ef4, king e2, king e5, right?
yeah,
King d4, I think.
All right, king d4 another decision. Let's just look at king e5. So king e5, what if they go king d3?
f5.
Okay, so are you trying to run your king over to collect this?
Yeah.
I think we're a bit too slow though. So king d4. Actually, wait, let's think. This is tricky. So ef4, king e2, king e5. It's not the move I was thinking about, but we still need to figure out if it works or not. So king e2, king e5. It's kind of similar to that other pawn endgame we had, right? We run the king over.
Trying to want to go around that.
Yeah.
Around the g pawn.
That's a good idea. Doesn't seem like it should work, but not seeing the defense for white either. So ef4, king e2, king e5. So I'm thinking king d3, king f5, king d4, king g6. I'm not sure if I'm in time there. Because again, the same issue. King e4, king h5. The King's going to run up to h4, take on h3, and then at the end, king g3. The same idea, pick up the f3 pawn. So e4, king e2, king e5. I thought we had an easier win, but let's see. King e5. Now we got to think about defensive resources for white. Guys in the chat, help us out. King e2, king e5, is there a defense? So black's idea is to run the king over to h4, take on h3, and then play king g3 at the end, which would win. So white has to try to stop that somehow. And I'm having difficulty seeing how.
Are they chasing each other, it seems like?
What?
So, are they chasing, the king's chasing after each other basically, so?
Yeah, it's like it seems like that other tactic, right? Where we ran our king to the corner when the king was back on the back and went king g8, king h7, king h6. So if black's king gets to h4, it's over. Because we're going to take on h3, white will take on g5, and we have that king g3 move. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way for white to stop that. I'm not seeing it. Okay, let's play e4. We know that's the move. So. Okay, king. All right, let's solve the position, and then we'll come back to that. That's very interesting. I'm curious if king e5 also wins, because I thought we had a simpler solution there. All right, let's try to first get through this part though. So king e1, so white's trying to be clever. So you wanted king d4, right? Even against king e2, but it's the same thing after king e2 or king e1. The problem with king d4 is white plays king d2, so he takes the opposition, and all of a sudden our king is blocked out. We can't penetrate. So imagine this position, king d2, king d4. If it's white's move, it's a draw. But if it was his move, sorry, if it's black's move, it's a draw. But if it's white's move, we win, because no matter where he moves his king, he gives up ground. We go the other way. So is there a way which we can get that position, but with white to move? So remember, king d4, king d2, that's a draw. It's black to move, right? So we need to get this position. The kings opposing each other, but it has to be white's move. Yeah, Patrick, I was thinking along those lines too. But I think black could, I think black has a way to win there also. But maybe not. Maybe I just missed something.
King on d4.
No, but king d4, we just said that allows king d2. We don't want to allow this position with black to move. We need to get this position, king d4, king on d2, with white's move. So that way, whichever way he moves, we go the other way and continue entering into his position. So again, look at all the squares we have access to. We know it's not king d4. We can move to a square that's close by. Yep, good job guys in the chat.
c4.
Yep, very good, king c4. So we go there, and now after king d2, so he can't delay this. So if he goes king e2, we would just go king c3, and we're gaining ground. Next move is king moves, we enter to d3. And we're going to slowly get to the e3 square, which will allow us to pick up this pawn. So now what do we do after king d2? We've got our position. What do we play?
King d4.
Yeah, very good, king d4. And now it's white's move. He has to concede ground. The game's over. We enter here. And we need to realize that this position is winning. Once we get to the 6th rank, his king can't prevent black's king from entering. So no matter what he does, eventually we're going to end up here. He loses the f pawn and he loses the game. All right, now let's go back to this line. So when we were thinking about e4, king e2, I thought king c4 was just the simplest, because we get this line that we got after king e1, and eventually our king penetrates. But oops, sorry. King e2, king e5. Maybe this move wins also. Uh, So I'm curious, does this win after? So in the tactic, like it gave us e f4, king e1. They tried king e1. So I'm curious, would king e5 win here? Does this make a difference? Because maybe that's why they tried king e1 then. So does king e5 work here? Is there a difference with the king on e1? Let's see. I think there is. Yeah, there is. So white goes king e2 back. And the point is he sticks here. So for example, even if we get the king all the way over here, we can't make progress. And another point is by playing king e1, king e5, king e2, this idea is no longer possible. We get the wrong position with our move here. We want this position of white to move. But I think after king e2, king e5 also wins now. Because the difference is here, king e1, I don't know, maybe there is no difference actually now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, I think the point is just that white keeps his king here to run to g2 to defend if you try to come around. I think that's the point. He doesn't try to chase after our pawns like this. He just passively defends. Yeah, I think eventually we have to go for this idea with king c4 to triangulate and then get the king d4 position. Yeah, sorry about that. It was a bit confusing for me there. I don't know. Pawn end games can be tricky. All right, finally back to a middle game. White just took on f7. It's our move. Our queen is under attack. There's potential for exchanges here. So what do we think? Yeah, Patrick, that's sort of tripping me up as well. Like, I thought that if we mess up that opposition, white could just make a draw or something, but maybe not. I don't know.
Can we take rook e1, bishop takes e1, and then queen to e6?
Okay, very good. Rook takes c1, so we start with the forcing move. We capture his rook. He takes back. We notice this knight on f7 could be potentially offside, right? That knight is really deep in enemy territory, and it's not defended. So rook e1, bishop e1, queen e6. Double attack on the e1 bishop and the f7 knight, and he can't protect both. All right, they try knight g5, hitting our queen and king, but we just take back, and we won a piece. All right, we got a rook endgame now. Pawns out over the board. Everything is flying. So black's last move is a4. He's trying to get rid of this b pawn so you can have 3 connected passed pawns and just start pushing stuff down the board. So should we be fixated on that, or what's our source of counterplay here? We've only got one thing going for us. Yeah, good point, Edward, in the previous position, yeah. d4, bishop f5, good stuff. Yes, very good point. That's why queen e7 didn't work. I didn't mention that, but yeah, good catch. So again, what's our idea here? What's our main pride in the position? We only have one thing going for us. We're down material. He's got a bunch of passed pawns ready to barrel down the board. We have one hope here. Well, if we give a check, that doesn't really do much, right? He just moves his king, and then what? Our source of counterplay here is not going to be that rook. We have something which could potentially be very strong for us in this position. Again, look at our pieces.
Take the pawn.
Okay, one at a time. Which move?
Take the pawn.
Well, if you take the pawn, what does that accomplish? He just pushes the b pawn. Sorry, what?
To run the pawn, to
Yeah, exactly. We got this h pawn here down the board. We can't like get
give him a free, give him.
exactly. We take on a4. We just give him this pawn. Like he already has enough passed pawns. We don't need to give him another one. We got to focus on our counterplay here. So let's start calculating. h6. We're about to run this pawn down the board. Is there any way black can stop this? The only way he can do that is to get his rook back in time. So let's say he plays a takes b3. Maybe hoping to get in rook a7. So h6, ab3. We just push that pawn again. He can't stop that pawn. So now his only hope is to try to queen at the same time as us to counter that. So b2, we promote. He promotes. So now, okay, let's visualize that position. We got a queen on h8. He's got a queen on b1, but we queen first, so we have that extra tempo, which means we have to go for mate there. Black's king is exposed. So what do we play in that position after both sides promote?
Check.
Check where?
C8.
With the rook?
Yes.
I think we have a better move. Again, you don't want the king to escape to b5. If his king gets behind his own pawns, they're going to provide shelter. h6. Sorry, what?
Queen d8,
You mean e8 here? Queen can go to d8.
or I mean, d1, right?
Uh,
What am I saying? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
d1 how?
No.
I think you have the right idea there. h6, promote. So we both promote.
All right, and queen,
We gotta stop the king from running. That's black's plan there. So which queen check boxes that king in?
Queen on E8.
d8.
Yeah, very good. e8, yeah, queen e8. So h6, ab3, h7. We promote, he promotes. If that king comes down the board here, sheltered by his pawns, it's over. He's up, what, 2 pawns, but he's also got a bunch of connected pass pawns. We have nothing going for us in this position, so we have to play for mate here. Queen e8 check. And the king is just going to get mated very quickly. So let's see how that plays out. King b6. Let's finish off the game here. How do we mate him? A few ways to do this.
Rook. B8.
Okay, rook b8. Let's see, I go back here.
Queen D8 check.
Okay.
B.
Yeah, that's good. Rook b6. And it's made. The king can't escape. So let's look at one more potential line. Rook b8. If I go king a7.
Rook. A8. Queen B8 check.
Actually not sure if this is leading to mate now that I think about it. Maybe rook b8 wasn't the best way to do it. Queen b8, king c6. King's kind of running now. But we do have this at least, queen e6 check, hitting the rook and the king. In the worst case, we're picking up that rook. But I think back here, we have a simpler way to do this, which I think it's mate, or am I missing something? Okay, I'm confused now. I was thinking this is mate, but king a5, maybe his king escapes unless I'm missing something obvious. Queen a8, king b5, somehow his king is holding on here.
Check.
I don't know, maybe I'm missing a mate, but in any case, this line is good enough because we do pick up his rook here. That's important. Queen e6 check. That's enough for us to stop the line. Pick up the rook, and then his king will be exposed anyways. We'll just be up a rook. Okay, let's go to the next position. Okay, complicated stuff, but got to cut through the noise here. White has a bunch of scary looking pieces, but maybe they're not that scary. So we have this potential pass b pawn here, which could be a source of counterplay. If the queen's got off the board, That pawn is rolling down the board. Unfortunately, there are a bunch of threats to our king right now. Knight just took on h7. He's threatening to move that knight, give a nasty discover check to f6. That would be mate. If we take on h7, he gives a check. King g8. Rook d8 check. We have to take. Queen d8, king f7, and queen f8 is mate. So we can't take that knight either. So are we all out of hope, or do we have a counter move here? So again, look at this 7th rank. This is potentially weak for white. The rook on d2 is covering it, but maybe it's also a target here.
Why don't we just take the rook?
Okay, queen takes d2. What if they take?
Then rook
And
to
C2.
Yeah, rook comes down to c2. And we pin the queen back. And all of a sudden, white's just completely lost. If he takes on c2, all right, let's make the move. Yeah, if he takes on c2, we take back. That pawn's promoting. And there's really nothing else he can do. No matter what, we're going to take that queen, and then we're going to push this b pawn down the board and get a new queen with a completely winning position. So yeah, queen takes d2 there. Nice little trick, taking advantage of the rook sliding down to the 7th rank. All right, we've got time for one more. This looks like something out of a Greco game from the 1600s. So black's king is in the center. White's pieces are all attacking. We are down a piece though at the moment. Right, we got 1, 2, 3 pieces. He's got one. Oh, okay, I can't count, never mind. We're not down a piece. We are down some material, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got 6 pawns. He's got 7. That means we're down a pawn. So we sacrificed the pawn here somehow for some initiative. Right, we've got this pin going on the h4 d8 diagonal. Our queen is active. Got a knight in the center pressuring that knight on e7. Is there a way which we can exploit all of this? Yeah, it was queen takes d2. It wasn't just a, desperate move to give up the queen. It actually had a follow-up to it with rook c2. So d takes e5. I feel like we have to use this pin somehow. So let's see, this is tricky. There's no obvious answer at the moment. I have an idea. I don't know if it's good though. Some good suggestions in the chat as well. Haven't solved this myself either, so let's try to figure this out. Got that pin going for us. And as the chat's pointing out, there are potential mating ideas. For example, a move like queen h6, very cool move. If black takes, we give a check. King f8, bishop h6 would be mate. But he doesn't have to take, that's the problem. He could just take on d5 there, and we would just be lost. If we take the queen, he takes our queen. So queen h6 doesn't quite work. So one other suggestion, bishop takes e7, knight takes e7, queen e5. We do get the pawn back and we have this pin, but I'm not so sure. King f8 there maybe. He breaks the pin, protects g7. He might be escaping. I think we have something more incisive here. Okay, bishop f6, another very interesting move. So what if black castles there? Let me go into it. So bishop f6, castle. Do you see a win for there? Do you see a win there for white? I don't see it, unless I'm missing something, which is possible. This position is actually quite tricky, especially for the last one of the session. So I'm right now thinking about an idea that's connected with taking advantage of this pin. We'd love to be able to take on e7. The g6 knight is protecting it.
Knight f6.
Knight f6, he just takes. And we didn't get anything, right? So I'm thinking about a way to undermine this g6 knight. But I don't know, maybe that's a bit far-fetched also. Might be off base there, I don't know. This one's tough. Yeah, so I'm thinking about bishop d3 here with just the idea of taking on g6, but not really sure how much of a threat that is. He could just take back fg6, hitting the queen with tempo.
Rook e1.
Rook e1, okay, that's a good suggestion. Getting the rook into the game. Maybe black plays bishop e6, trying to obstruct the e-file. I mean, whatever the move is going to be, it's going to be something like very direct. It's probably going to be sacrificial somehow. So yeah, maybe moves like bishop d3 and rook e1 are too slow. I don't know, this one's tough.
What about bishop h6?
Bishop h6, also a very good idea, but he just castles. He doesn't have to take on h6, that's the problem. And I don't see the follow-up. What do you guys think in the chat? I really threw a curveball with this one. So we got a lot of candidate moves. We got bishop f6, we've got rook e1, we've got bishop d3.
I keep wanting to try knight to f6 like he said.
Yeah, that would be great if we could play knight f6, but fortunately there he takes.
But then you take back with the bishop, and then he's got to move the rook then, right? And then you take that. I just feel like that would turn into something. Can we?
Well, even if he plays rook g8, you take on h7, everything is protected. His knight protects the rook. More importantly, after knight f6, g f6, bishop f6, he's got this queen takes d4 move. Our pawn is hanging. That's a check, and then our king is very exposed all of a sudden.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't think knight f6 works. Yeah, so again, this suggestion, bishop e7, knight e7, queen e5, also could be possible. It just doesn't look as forceful as I think this position should be. But could be just something simple like that. I don't feel like it is though. It's like after queen e5 there, king f8. I don't see a great follow-up there. We might have to guess.
Take the knight, the queen.
This? Yeah, but again, he takes, and then what? He doesn't have to take with the knight, right? So queen takes, I just take with the pawn. If you take this, I'll move my queen up. My queen is safe then. So if you take on c7 there, so bishop e7, knight e7, queen e5, king f8. If you play knight takes c7, I'll play knight c6, hitting your queen back. I'm also attacking d4 potentially. Could be an issue. Why did they have to give us such a tough one? I honestly have no idea. Guys in the chat, you're going to have to bail us out. So my initial idea of bishop d3, I thought it was strong at first with the idea of bishop g6, but even if he plays a move like queen d7, something weird like that, just to break the pin, I didn't see what we can play there. Well, technically this is supposed to be, I think the club's puzzle account is around 2700, and I set the difficulty level -600. So it's supposed to be around 2100 technically. So it's pretty bad if we can't solve this. But this feels harder than a 2100 position. There are no obvious moves here. Queen h6, I don't think that's it, guys. Knight takes d5. He doesn't have to take on h6. Yeah, so bishop f6 makes more sense because we have a threat on g7 and he actually can't take because that's mate. So bishop f6, my thing was I didn't see what to play after castle. Protecting the g7 pawn. Maybe we just take on e5 there, d takes c5. That could be something. So bishop f6 castle, maybe just a simple d takes e5. Recapturing and reinforcing that bishop. He can't take again because it's mate. Knight f6, queen h7. Bishop f6 castle, d takes e5 could be something. Again, it looks very lame though. We just take back after all that. Surely there's something stronger. Oh wait, maybe bishop f6 castle, knight e7, queen g5. So bishop f6 castle, knight e7, knight e7, queen g5. Okay, I'll tell you what I got. I'll tell you what you guys what I missed. So bishop f6 castle, knight e7, knight e7, queen g5. I had seen this early on, but I didn't see what to do after h6.
How can he, if he takes bishop, if the bishop takes first, how can he still castle?
Where? Oh, you mean here?
Yes.
Oh no, but we're playing bishop f6.
Okay.
So bishop f6 castle, knight e. Yeah, Patrick, exactly. No, Patrick's got it. So I missed knight e7, queen g5, h6. So the point is, if we take that knight, he takes back. We take that queen, he takes back. It's equal material, but there's a very simple move there. So let's actually play. It's definitely bishop f6. Okay, it's not bishop f6. Okay, I give up then. All right, well, let's look at this line. Okay, wait, we still need to input the correct move. Shoot, I don't know what to play. If it's going to be bishop d3, I'll be mad. Okay, it's not bishop d3, good. Okay, let's just guess moves, guys. Oh my god, it's actually bishop takes e7, queen e5. Whoever said that, good job. You should have the gym title, not me. So queen e5. I don't know, I didn't see what to do after king f8 though. I didn't realize why this is so special. Like, we won the pawn back, but I just didn't get it. It's like, does it just want us to play queen takes c7 and just win a pawn? It could be something like that. Because that would be a very strong endgame, right? We're up a pawn and we got these pawns as well, but it just felt like the nature of the position, we've got this pin, our queen's out, that they wanted something more forceful. So yeah, wow, it was just bishop takes c7 and queen takes e5. Interesting. All right, so bishop f6. So why I rejected this early on was h6, but what did I miss here? Yeah, queen takes g7. It's just mate. Because we're also threatening the knight on e7. We can't deal with both. But now that I'm looking at it, I also missed something else very simple and basic. Queen takes d4 check. He has this counter check, which I forgot about as well. So that's why this doesn't work. Otherwise, bishop f6 would win. But unfortunately, he has queen takes d4 check. King doesn't really have any good squares. And he breaks that pin wherever we move our king. Oops. He blocks that mate threat. His queen's out of that pin. And yeah, bishop's not looking too smart anymore. It's actually trapped. Okay, so I guess we could have solved this with process of elimination. If we realized all these moves doesn't work, then yeah, bishop takes e7 is probably the move. Knight e7, queen e5. All right, that was a bizarre position, but at least we figured out the correct move eventually after getting it wrong a bunch of times. All right, so that's going to be it for tonight. Thanks, guys. You guys did really well. Good job in the chat as well, especially the guy who got bishop e7, queen e5. Very well done. Hope you all enjoy that. Have a good night. We'll be back next time.